prochaine interview sera en anglais. The next interview is going to be in English. Petit côté Nelson Montfort, merci beaucoup. Du coup, on va vous présenter Markus. I'm not gonna say your name, I'm sorry. Who's the composer of the music of the Wagadu Chronicles, and he's going to be interviewed by Aisha.
Bonsoir. Il est 17h35, c'est le soir, non? Je pense. Donc oui, cette interview sera en anglais et pour les questions, vous pourrez les poser en français et je ferai la traduction. J'ai un bon accent français, donc je pense que vous me comprendrez. Et si jamais vous avez besoin que je répète, je le ferai. So, Markus, how are you?
Good.
Good, super. How do you pronounce your last name?
Do you want to have the English version or the German version?
Both.
The English version is Zierhofer.
Okay.
The German version is Zierhofer.
Okay. It's very different. Okay, get it. So, Markus, you are from Berlin. You came all the way here for this interview. Thank you very much. And I don't think a lot of people know you yet. So this is the point of this interview. So can you present yourself? Tell us how you became a music composer and why music? Why not art? Why not anything else?
Yeah, thank you so much for being here and the invitation. So originally I'm from Austria. I grew up in a small town underneath Vienna. My father was a folk music producer, and I was like, yes, music, but completely different. So I started then contemporary composition in Vienna and piano. I was like, yeah, that's cool. And I niched myself then in between of those things, and media music was then something I felt like, oh yeah, I have the music production side from there, and like a bit more sophisticated and contemporary music from the other one. So then I moved to Berlin, where I've done my master studies in the film studios, and also had like a few excursions to London, to the Royal College of Music, and also worked a little bit in Los Angeles and a few others, but now like a few years I'm more settled in Berlin. So yeah, music always was kind of there. So I literally haven't done anything else.
Well, that's good. Like this, you are very specialized in your art. And how did you become a music composer in video games? How did that happen?
Yeah, well, I've tried a lot in films, but films always like a little or like especially the industry, and it felt very more welcome and also very more accessible in the gaming industry, because I myself always was a gamer. So when I was a child, I always was like playing computer games with friends. And then I got like collaborationships with study classes in Berlin or like other academies where game developers are, looking for projects or doing their first student projects. And there I got like a collaboration, and from there it simply began to be like the main part of being a composer right now. It's like 80-90% really just game music, and that's awesome because I love games.
Thank you for this answer. I was wondering, and I was trying to not ask you before the interview. So one of your most exciting video game on... Wait, I'm trying to think in French and English at the same time. One of the most exciting games you've done lately is called the Wagadu Chonicles. So how did it start? How did you become part of this project? And how did you approach the musical universe around this game?
Yeah, that game was is still like one of the games that I really look backwards like really amazing in terms of like what we have done together. So the story goes like this. I was studying, and there also like the head of Twin Drums, Alan, was also a student there, and then we haven't worked actually on a game, but then after we graduated, he got into Wuger in Berlin. That's a bigger company with like 100 employees, and he organized a gamers night, like an LGBTQ+ event for game devs and gamers. So I also went there and was like, yeah, cool, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm doing this and this and this. And afterwards, he approached me like, hey, Markus, listen, I have a very interesting project. Are you interested in helping me? And then he pitched me like the idea for Wagadu Chronicles, and if I want to be part of it and want to help. And yeah, so it kind of began with that story. And the game itself, it's like an isometric MMO, focused on role-playing, but in an Afro-fantasy setting, which is very refreshing, because especially at that time, there wasn't really something out in that direction. It was always like, you know, the old school generic fantasy Tolkienish. So having more like that focus was really amazing to actually work on, and also work on a very early basis. So we very early discussed like how can we approach the music on this. So this that's why this is also kind of a special scenario. Yeah.
Can you talk about how you did the research around this game? So just to re-specify, it's a game in the Afro-fantasist world. So like you can imagine D&D, but in Africa. If that's that's very shortened view of the idea. And how did you do the research around the music, around the sounds? Well, tell us.
Yeah, before that I had already contact with like African musicians beforehand. Nevertheless, before we started on Wagadu Chronicles, I said, or like before I started the first note on it, I sat down with Alan and said like, hey, if we do this, we're gonna do this right. And I want to capture like really the essence, and not like, oh yeah, it's just a random YouTube video, and now I'm trying to do like music that it's inspired with. I want to actually meet real musicians. I want to see how they play, what they play, and also what kind of emotion that portrays. So we researched a few musicians in the hometown, or like Alan is half Ghanaian, so he has his mother is living in Accra. So together, there's Alan, we visited Accra. We simply flew there. We researched musicians for traditional African music, and approached them like, hey, we want to do a research project for a game, and we would love to meet you and would love to record a few examples of the musicians, of the instruments, and also like a bit of the history behind it, and also what kind of emotions when you play, or like what kind of play styles have what kind of connections to the culture and emotions. So we had like 3 locations, so that was one of the first locations. So the one flute player, there was also a jazz flute player, but integrated like traditional aspects in it, so that's the laboratory. Then we have like the kora, that's the string instrument, the harp that you're seeing, and also underneath you see the balafon. I think we can also go to the next.
Yeah, can you tell us about the 3 locations? So you went in
Yes.
different parts of the continent.
Yes.
So it means that the game has different kind of music styles. Is that correct?
Yes, so we have like a few biomes in that game that also represent a little bit of the African kind of biomes. We have the savanna, rainforest, Sahara, and also like we have West Africa focus at first, because the first biome we had was savanna. And also like Ghana is kind of in that kind of zone. So we utilized that simply and focused a bit on West African music on this. So we had like 3 locations in Accra, or like a little, like in Ghana itself.
Okay, so you stayed in Ghana, you didn't go to any other country. Okay. So we have a small footage of musicians that are playing some kind of instruments.
That's the kora.
Up. So can you tell us a little bit more about how, from this, you came into making a score for the game?
Mm-hmm, yeah, I mean, just, so that was the second location. So the first one was more like a studio location, and this one was a cafe. And the owner simply had like tons of instruments there. and in a corner, and people just grab them and play, and that I find very awesome, because you know, they're just lying there around. So meaning when musicians are coming and want to jam, they just grab some and they're playing, and I think that's also something really, really nice. What a, you know, community, you just go down and jam. To have that access is great. And we simply ask also them like, hey, can you play this? And that, we heard a lot of talking drums in the video. But yeah, so from this we captured simply the recordings. I analyzed a little bit and also focused, hey, what kind of emotions that we want to portray. It was actually not so easy here and there, because if there's a lot of drumming in an MMO, a lot of drumming can also be annoying. So the difficulty also was to have that parts with where it really fits, and where you have to simply find the balance, and also that it works in the game itself.
But how did you find the balance? What do you consider the key elements in, if we put back the sound bite, to what do you keep? How do you decide what to keep and what to put aside?
Testing, a lot of testing. Yeah, again, we had like, when you're playing an MMO, you play like, you get around. So if there's constantly a drum loop playing, because a lot of the instruments and stuff that we recorded was kind of very rhythmically, which is great. I mean, African music often has different patterns. It's not like the structures that we are often used to. So at the end, it was simply testing. We simply need to test, like, where can we integrate this, where not, and also which kind of sounds representing that, what we want to achieve. And also the instruments that are more located for each kind of biome. For the savanna, for example, that it had more the kora, and the dunduns, and the djembes, and maybe here and there oud, but a few others like calabash, or more for the north. So the restraints we simply had is testing.
Okay, so we have sound bites of the game. We're going to have 3 different sounds, and I will let you comment on top of the music, because I don't know how the slides will react to music.
Okay.
So we'll see how it works. So this is for the menu music.
So should I simply go or?
Normally it's supposed to stop at 10 seconds. Well, we never know.
Ah, okay.
I will go back and forth.
Okay.
It's easier.
So that was the first piece. And when I approach music for games, I want to have like something that captures it, the essence, but also have something that is recognizable at the very end, so that people, when hear it, the theme itself, the music, can be interpreted, as well as the melodic and rhythmicality of it. And with the research and all the kind of influences that I had, I tried to have like this was kind of the first piece. And with the melodic da 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 kind of thing that always goes through every kind of instruments, variations and stuff, having that as a recognizable melody for the game helps the IP, and also, you know, can reach certain parts of people in a different way. So that was like my kind of first music basis in terms of like the melodics, and yeah.
Okay, second sound. Oh, it stopped.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So that was that was in a mini game where you do fishing, and it's a kind of rhythm game. You actually hear like a variation of the main theme there. Here we have also more a percussion focus. So we also actually recorded live percussion from a Nigerian composer in and he's now back. He studied also in England and approached us like, hey, I want to be part of it, and was like, yes, we have something that we need help with. And yeah, it was a great collaboration, and we hear like also the bell and a few other kind of percussion instruments.
Yeah, we can easily recognize the drums that we heard in the first video, so it's nice to see. So how, because there is the drums, and did you add instruments that are not, because it's Afro-fantasist, how did you add the fantasist part?
Yeah, that's again, how much balance do you keep? Especially at that time, we had like Black Panther out and a few other approaches from Ludwig Göransson. I mean, very, very, very good composer as well. And I think like from the balance with the fantasy world, with orchestra, and the kind of original or like inspired kind of African aspects of it were quite good. Maybe a little bit too big or Hollywoodish, of course, for us. But it's, again, how much do you add and where not? So the rhythmical parts are mostly very kind of focusing on percussion that is really from Africa, while a few, especially for the ambient stuff, we need to go like more for string sections or natural sounds that we morphed. We also recorded a few natural sounds when we got to Ghana, like rainforest chirps and noises, or like ambient and stuff, and to capture simply also the nature of it, and modified it and have then created like pads and everything, so that's more fitting for like a more calm environment as well. And yeah, from those aspects, also one thing, when we are used to like a octatonic scale or like a 12-tone system, but there are a lot of amazing other tone systems. And in Africa, we have like pentatonic or heptatonic, like 7. That means that few microtonalities that we might hear as like very weird at first is actually very natural to them, because they're in a different kind of, because of like the pop culture and pop music that is everywhere and has been defined the last decades. I tried to sneak in here a few microtonalities because they have different kind of scales, and it's super interesting to work with that. But again, here as well, where do you keep the balance? Because you want to keep the players open and also that it's welcoming for everyone, but still want to have like a few, like, don't be too shallow of what you do.
Thank you for this explanation. And then we have the Savannah loop. Let's see.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, here it's calmer, right? So here you can really hear the more calmer and ambient kind of sounds. Nevertheless, we also still like hear a little bit of balafone, a little bit of drums underneath. But again, there we need to always be very careful that it's not disturbing the player too much for a long time.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the instruments. I have some instruments you sent me. Can you tell us their names? What do they do, and how you composed with them?
Sure. So let's start. We have on the left corner, there we have a metal bell. It's actually called the bell, most of it, and it's making like a cowbellish sound, but a bit more metalish, if that description is awesome. And originally, we also interviewed the musicians, like where the instruments coming from and what they kind of stand for. And for this one musician said like, hey, yes, this instrument was often used to signalize that like an important person is coming or the king is coming, because it's very, very, has a distinctive sound that goes like really the attention because it's high pitched and metal. It's like the pendant to a fanfare in the Middle Age. We're like, bah, 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 and we have the bell that signalizes that here. Then we have the ballophone that's on the right corner above. This is made with wood sticks, and underneath there's like a pumpkin, a whole pumpkin. And if you strike on it, it's kind of like a marimba, or like that was before the marimba. So the marimba, that's the marimba where it's coming from, And here you also see a little bit the tonal scale, and it's more or less pentatonic, meaning that we have like different kind of scales used than we have, or we have here in Europe, for example. And then we have the shekere. That's that's also like a pumpkin that's on the left or like above. It's like a kind of shakerish sound. And then we have the dundun. Usually they're like one or two. There's also like a playing style or like other version of that that's called twin drums or like twin. It's funny because when I talked with Alan about like what kind of instruments and stuff that is there, he also then developed the kind of company name to twin drums. And those drums were there to communicate over wide distance. So they had different kind of rhythmical patterns to simply communicate or like really like, hey, saying actual words through the rhythm of the drums through longer kind of distances. And I think that's what is that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. So all of these instruments we can hear them in the in the game. So you work with Twin Drums. So that's the name of the studio that developed the game. The game was financed by a crowdfunding campaign. Sorry. How did that work? And we have only a few minutes before we can ask some questions. I'm going to show the trailer, but just to show how this project started with the Kickstarter.
Sure.
And the last phase we are today before showing the trailer.
Yeah, so the Kickstarter preparation started basically a year before. So we were really planning quite a lot ahead. So also the kickstarting campaign was our travel to Ghana, and we had like 9 or 10 months after that the actual Kickstarter campaign. And we prepared and tried a lot to have like the best kind of, spots when we start, and also having enough kind of content that we can share, and also like the research that we have done, all the kind of great musicians. And so we had like a lot of preparation time. And I think when you're doing a Kickstarter campaign, I think a lot of preparation time is simply needed, because there's like certain kind of hit points that you need to go, and especially like on the first day. So the first day was very critical. If you ever have done like a Kickstarter campaign or something else, or crowdfunding, the first day, it's kind of, the first day decides if you make it or not. And that's why we tried to have, everything kind of cluttered there, which kind of worked. And also we have done one additional thing over that time. So especially that time, there have been art challenges, or like the thing was doing art challenges for a game, so artists can, submit like artworks, and then they might go into like the game itself and stuff like that. And because we had like a very significant theme that was kind of easy to translate, and people can still like hum it in the team, we done that with music. Meaning we created a music challenge where simply people could play and arrange the theme in their own interpretation. And we also got 7 or 8 submissions, which surprisingly high for music, because usually it's not too many, not too usual, I would say. We got like lots of piano covers, guitar. We got also like an oud player, an accordion. So it's super fun.
So today the game is in alpha release, and this is the trailer of that alpha.
We're going into early access.
Yeah. You're going to?
Yes.
Going to.
There you can hear the bell.
Voilà.
Thank you.
Nous allons prendre quelques questions.
Hello. First of all, congratulations for your work. It's really good. And I have two questions. The first one is you obviously recorded all the players, African players, music players. Do you use also some virtual instrument like native instrument, East-West, etc.? That is the first part of the question. And the second part is how do you see the future of the composer? Because now there is intelligence artificial. And I saw that there are someone that can create music in the style of Mahler, in the style of Beethoven or something.
Yeah,
how do you work with that?
I mean, AI is like, we have so many AI tools the last decade in the music production. So it's really not something new. It's just like, you know, especially since last year, like there is something, and now we call everything AI. Nah. Anyway, but generative AI is more and more the thing. That's true, and it can create certain things quite well, and certain things very not well. Okay, so first question. In the trailer, about 90% is from virtual instruments. So usually, yes. So what nowadays often happen, even in big Hollywood production, it's always like a mixed thing. So you record a few things that really, you know, define the sound and is very, you know, giving something additional to the music. And the rest, because we have so many good tools and samples available, I don't need to record like this. If that has been already recorded very, very, very well with the best microphones and players, you know, but nevertheless, it's often like a mix. So that you record that instruments live, what we did, for example, for certain percussion instruments in this music, and but for the others, we often then need to stick to virtual instruments, often also because of budget reasons. I mean, I always try to push like, hey, please integrate musicians more, because that's really giving emotion and also support to them. But yeah, often, you know, I know the situation, we simply have to balance those things out, and usually it's always a mixture. But like I would recommend, because if you're only doing virtual instruments, at some point, it will be sounding always the same.
Yeah, it's lack of feeling, human feeling, maybe.
Or simply, it's not that treatable like you want to have it, or want to have it played. And, you know, it can only have a certain sound. And then, oh, everything sounds like Hollywood. Okay, great. Yeah. Do we need that? Yeah. And, I mean, the second question is, yes, there are generative AI tools, but I wouldn't say that they are competitive at the moment. So when you generate, like, music, yes, I want to have, like, congas, blah, 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 thing merged with this, it creates a very generative music that's sounding like free music anyways. So it does not really add anything or cut a specific thing where I would say that's like an income thing, because the quality that it makes is usually underneath like what you pay for. Because the market is already, or at least generative AI for music at the moment, from my understanding, or like what I have seen so far, is targeting only the dead market anyways. Meaning there's not really income that's cutting. Nevertheless, the thing that will be an issue, or will cut things, is when those kind of generative music is used underneath videos, and not generating royalties from musicians that would get royalties from that. So there I see a bigger point that we shouldn't use those things anyways, in terms of when it's like really 100% generative. We have tools, we can use them, but we are still like humans, we need the income and also...
It's still a tool that you can use.
And it's just, at some point, I also will expect like some other like voice acting AI tools or whatever. At some point, it will decline, because now it takes everything that it got and has everything in. And then people will be a bit more protective for other stuff and also legal stuff. And then if you don't feed it and feed it and feed it and feed it, it will only then be, again, the same. So it won't, we always, it's like a wave. No, we're getting all cut, and then it's always an up and down.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Once again, thank you for what you've done, and I'm really glad that you went to the heart of Accra to learn about the stories and the instruments. Are they part of these instruments or these stories, this experience, that you plan on using outside of Wagadu Chronicles? Are there things that impacted you so much that you use that on from the musical standpoint outside of the game?
Yes, especially the drums, the drum phrasing, and the archaic kind of feel that often those kind of things have. And I use those things for another project later coming in that features like, a time even before humans. And that is difficult to do with voice or stuff that's very, very high technology, or like even like string or wind instruments. Oh yes, a person is playing into that flute. You hear the person, but persons aren't existing in this world. So yes, definitely, and also the courage to include those things more, be more experimental, and also with harmony, and also with microtonality, and try to sneak it in sometimes.
Great.
I had a question about how because you're using virtual instruments, I thought the string sections were really well humanized, and meaning velocity-wise and intensity. I thought that the score had a lot of intensity changes in the trailer. Obviously, as a musician myself, sometimes I struggle with the humanizing parts of a score, because I feel if I put too much pressure on myself on really humanizing it too much, then I miss out on the creative aspect of making music, and I'm so much into the details of, this thing has to have a vibrato at the end of a phrase, and I'm kind of forgetting that music is layers. And if I added another layer, maybe I wouldn't have to do that much work in humanizing. So yeah, what kind of, you think, percentage is layering and humanizing in a composition?
I try to have that as quickly as possible. I'm a person that's creating, or like try to be very efficient with the work, because the industry is not an easy one, and you have to often work a lot and long working hours. So you want to work efficiently, and often if you're getting lost in so many details, like you don't really hear it. So that's why I was like, okay, now in 3 hours you need to have the track done. Okay, let's do that. And what happens is that you make very quick decisions, and often the result is often done better because you're cutting those things that anyways should make it. And if you're getting lost in too much, oh yeah, now I have to humanize this pad and this thing and this vibrato and here and there. I mean, it's awesome if you have the time, but I would split those things. So first, I always create like the backbone, like the melody, the rhythmic, and the harmony. And then when I have layered that out, then I go into arranging and producing. Or if I've already like the setup standing in the session, then it's also kind of, also in the same vibe, but it's still quick decisions often help to getting not lost in those things. And if you're struggling with record it, it spares time.
All right, thank you.
Hi, thank you for sharing your experience first. So we talked about the strings parts in the music, which is a bit more of an Occidental like influence of music. How did you manage to like find the right balance between your African inspiration and the Occidental inspiration that's coming from like basically every video games? And were you even the one like deciding how much of what you needed to put in?
Testing. Yeah, you have to try things out, actually. I mean, I listen to a lot of stuff and try to find like the right balance also with the game. So it is always like a close relationship that you have with the developers and discussion that you have. So you send like the first layers and say like, hey, what kind of misses it and what not. And for this, I had like luckily a good, not so much interference. But the balance is tricky. So, for example, African music does not really have so much long tones, or like instruments that hold a long tone, like maybe flutes, but usually it's percussive. That's why I needed something that's balancing those things out. Meaning, again, I have a lot of percussion layers that is very African inspired, and then I have more the ambient or like harmony layers that here and there are more like Western or like fantasy, I would say, like inspired to simply have still this kind of feel that it's working in the game and working together and not against each other.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers. It's tricky to answer because it's always a lot of testing.
Yeah.
And I simply tried to focus like, what do you need and where do you take it from? And that it's still keeping the balance.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to count your pockets, right? But you said that was a tough industry, right? So I wanted to know, how is the business situated? Is this like something you get money up front, or do you get some parts, some shares, each time the game is bought or something like that? I mean, if you can answer.
That very, very depends on the game and the situation.
Okay.
Sometimes they're like, yeah, we don't have this and this, and then you get maybe shares or like a split on like the sales. But I would recommend, and it's always and most of it right now is like 89%, I would say, is everything kind of upfront or like buyout, meaning you do the work, they approve it, and then you get paid.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Markus. We are going to move on from the program. You can get up, please, and leave the stage to the other participants.